Very few people realize that Muslims have been part of the American story for more than 200 years. We're going to discuss her groundbreaking series called American Muslims, A History Revealed, stories that you will not see in textbooks.
So I had these two narratives happening, breaking into an industry in journalism as being one of the few Arab Muslim women in that space, and then hearing people's narratives about what I can or cannot do. When I went into Hollywood, it was, again, a space that I learned once I became co-executive producer on the Hulu show Rami, that there weren't that many Arab Muslim women at that level. These are some stories even our community doesn't know about, let alone textbooks and mainstream non-Muslim American spaces.
So you got Malika Bilal, Ayman Ismail, and Asma Khalid, and they were digging into these stories that were completely left out of mainstream American history. You're listening to Wise Women with Daisy Khan, where faith rolls up its sleeves as a force for good, and where women define the future with wisdom and wonder. I'm Daisy Khan. Kindly subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Welcome back to Wise Women. Very few people realize that Muslims have been part of the American story for more than 200 years. Yet, despite this, Muslims often are spoken about rather than heard from directly. So we're going to change that in today's conversation, explore how Muslims are reclaiming their own narrative and shaping the way Americans understand them. Today, I'm sitting down with Dr. Maytha Alhassen. She's a storyteller, producer, and someone who has spent years uncovering the hidden layers of this American Muslim story. We're going to discuss her groundbreaking series called American Muslims, A History Revealed, stories that you will not see in textbooks that shape the way our community is understood. So, Dr. Maytha, I'm welcoming you to Wise Women.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm excited to be in conversation. I always love any opportunity to drill down the focus on gender and women too when it comes to our community.
What drives your work, and how did you end up in the storytelling and media world?
Thank you. I like to start out by talking about my relationship to the land. I was born in Tongva land, Los Angeles County, in a suburb that my father went to in 1968. He came from Syria. He was born and raised there from a Bedouin Arab tribe. So I carry that story, that lineage of migrating peoples with also their connection to the land. And then my mom comes in the late 1970s after she meets my dad in France. And then I just carry on that third culture kid story. My mom actually fled the civil war in Lebanon. So we have a story about a woman from Lebanon. And it wasn't Lebanon at the time. It was still Bilad al-Sham, the Levant, Syria. And I was second eldest. I had an older brother, but for whatever reason, my dad saw me as his heir apparent. So he really trained me to be somebody beyond the expectations of society. So it was always incredibly confusing for me when I went to places, and my dad would regularly introduce me as his future congresswoman at political fundraisers. And I was dressed out in my belly dancing outfit because I wanted to be a dancer when I was younger. But he had these kind of aspirations for me because he saw the US as this place that this kid who was the child of a displaced Bedouin and a father and a family that had done farming, had come to the US, became a mechanical engineer, then built up a big business that also included all of our extended family. I grew up on a cul-de-sac with all my dad's family too in Los Angeles. He saw this place as being somewhere that you could defy the expectations. And he didn't face America as a woman, right? He thought that there wasn't going to be these kind of limitations. So I had these two narratives happening, breaking into an industry in journalism as being one of the few Arab Muslim women in that space, and then hearing people's narratives about what I can or cannot do working in his business. There's not that many or any women that owned a car dealership. And then also when I went into Hollywood, it was, again, a space that I learned once I became co-executive producer on the Hulu show Rami, that there weren't that many Arab Muslim women at that level. Most people need models in our everyday lives to be inspired, to have a vision of what is possible to achieve. But I think the words of my father were really my model, even though, again, I just didn't see people in the spaces. I saw a Barbara Walters and Oprah. I didn't see anybody with my history. And
Yeah.
similarly on TV and film as well. And even in academia, I was never taught by an Arab woman until I was in graduate school. What propels everything is trying to create a model for future generations. So if they don't have anybody encouraging them to go beyond societal expectations, they have something to point to.
That's so interesting because my father, when I was growing up, he would show me this tall mountain and he would say to me, if you want, you can actually climb that mountain.
Wow.
That's how much the bar was raised very high at a young age. And I always felt that I could do anything that I decided to do. This leads me directly to the series that we are talking about. What made you want to be part of the American Muslim History Revealed story?
I was really lucky because it was already set into motion. Graham Judd, our filmmaker, had already done some series with PBS, so he had a sense of how to tell an epic story of a people. His partner is Bangladeshi and asked this question after he heard stories of Muslims in the US. Why is there no PBS series about Muslims? And he worked with some Muslim scholars and filmmakers to put together this pitch. Zahir Ali was one of them. Him and I were researchers at the Malcolm X Project at Columbia and had become thought partners for a long time about so many things. And when the series was starting to regain momentum, he reached out to me to be part of it. And initially they wanted me to be a writer on it. And one of my rare moments of trying to negotiate something, I up-pitched myself. Well, actually, I can be an executive producer if you're interested in that. And that's how I assumed the role. And it turned out to be a beautiful fit with people that came from different kinds of strengths to tell these stories. So Zahir and I had been teaching history of Muslims in the US in so many different ways. Graham comes with his strong filmmaking power. And then I also have those relationships in journalism. And I reached out to my incredible Muslim journalist friends to be a part of the series. And they also jumped at it because I think we were all hungry to hear the story. And these are some stories even our community doesn't know about, let alone textbooks and mainstream non-Muslim American spaces.
So you got Malika Bilal, Ayman Ismail, and Asma Khalid, and they were digging into these stories that were completely left out of mainstream American history. So tell us a little bit about what was in the series.
It's a 6-part series taking us from the 1750s to the 1950s, covering 200 years of before America was America, up until pre-civil rights moment. We chart almost taking those milestone moments in American history and show you Muslims at each one of them. At the Civil War, you see an Afghan who joins the Union side in fighting against the South. Then we see in the founding of a nation, an enslaved West African man who, when he gains his freedom, builds a house brick by brick in Georgetown. The first 3 are the making of a country. One of our most popular episodes is something I think a lot of us in the Muslim community know now, which is that Jefferson owned a Quran and was thinking about what it would be like to start a country, create a country where, as he said, a Mohammedan can become president. But we also paired that because we're really interested in charting real lived Muslim people in each episode. We combine that with another story a lot of us are learning about, which is Omar ibn Said and his Arabic script journals that he kept. And then the last 3 are about the story of migration and Muslims. The first one of them is a woman from Lebanon comes to the US, participates in the homesteading program that a lot of folks, even if they didn't know that they were part of the displacement of indigenous folks, were part of that story, but they found their roots and built a mosque in North Dakota. And then, so this was like an open period of migration. And the next one is a South Asian man who is a ship jumper and then comes to the US, stays, goes to the Southwest, does farming, is in the agricultural industry, meets a Mexican woman and is part of a lot of these communities of South Asian and Mexican families. And we even talked to his granddaughter as a part of his story. And he reflects that time in American history where we start to see the rise of anti-immigrant legislation in the 20s. And then the last story is Florence Watts, who is part of the Great Migration of Black Americans from the South to Chicago. And she actually is our only story of an Ahmadiyya. We don't get to hear that story a lot, but it was a big part of American Muslim, the fabric of American Muslim life in America was the Ahmadiyya movement.
So I want to shift back to the media landscape because post 9/11, it's going to be 25th anniversary of 9/11 this year.
So crazy.
And you know what happened after 9/11 and how the perceptions were shaped. Has anything changed in the mainstream media from your perspective? And if so, how?
I don't know if I would say the mainstream media has changed significantly. I would say public opinion has, definitely.
Partly because of social media, not mainstream.
Exactly. It's precisely social media. So it really reverberated. I think it was one of the most massive shifts. There was more coming out. Like Rami was massive as well. I get tons of people that are not Arab, not Muslims, saying they really related to the series. A lot of children of Africans, children of Caribbean folks, children of Central American migrants.
Minority types.
Yeah, exactly. People who feel like they're at the margins. Like that story resonated with them and they didn't know it was possible to find that connection point. And the thread around all of this is storytelling. Because guess what? In media, Ta-Nehisi Coates revealed it. There is no Arab or Palestinian on any of these big networks except Ayman Mohyeddin, who is allowed to tell our story.
Hanging on by the thread.
Alhassen had to start his own thing. Hassan Minhaj had to do his own thing. People are craving to hear from us. We need a lot more women in that space. Mm-hmm. And I can't wait for more of those household names of women. I had a friend who said, you guys are so in right now. Arabs are so in. Muslims are so in. And it's even the moments of joy that I think shifts things. I don't know if you've followed the TikTok trend with two battling Palestinian uncles. You don't know about
No, I haven't gone there yet.
Oh my God, it's amazing. Basically, what's happening is it's a Palestinian tradition to have uncles battle each other like poetry battle. And it's taken over the internet because people didn't realize how poetic these lines would be. And it's one of the biggest things on TikTok.
Oh, I must go see it. So I'm going to give you me as a gauge. Somebody who was consuming mainstream media mostly. I would get my news only from mainstream media, whether it was print or television or radio. And I have now pivoted out of mainstream media because I'm not getting the full picture. And I listen to analysts wherever I can find them, listen to people who have opposing views because I want to be informed. People are finding real truth, information that they cannot even find in mainstream media. And that's why public perception on everything is changing. And people are going on podcasts that have 7 million subscribers. That's unheard of.
And because I'm so fascinated about being in this place, and I was on Al Jazeera at one point, even when it was banned from having affiliates in the US. But Al Jazeera was still in 300 million households globally and was at almost every airport you were at. In the same way in the US, you would see maybe a CNN or Fox News at the airport. And I had this deep interest in trying to understand the numbers. And I remember once I was looking at the numbers from Nielsen ratings to views on YouTube to every social media that some of these mainstream stations had. And in some cases, when they were competing with a citizen journalist on Instagram, they were getting beat big time. All of them. People are craving the substantive, holistic story. And 24-hour news stations, primetime news, you look at it after you've listened to an hour podcast on something, and it feels like you're eating junk food. I remember I would go on Hulu has those 2020 episodes. They would do something that was au courant, and I would listen to it. I got nothing out of it. I would get absolutely nothing. And then I would say, why did I just waste my time on this formulaic, superficial, non-deep dive when I have an opportunity to spend my hour listening to people who are either embedded, 20-year experts, I'll listen to opposing views. I'll listen to repugnant views. I'll listen to all of it because I want to hear what people are not just thinking, but what are they hearing?
And I'm fascinated by how different somebody's view can be. I come from a place of curiosity. And I'm like, you think that? How did you arrive at that conclusion? I want to understand your thought process. That in itself is fascinating.
And these social media metrics give us a little bit of insight to where the mainstream media, I can't listen to an NPR story unless I look it up online and see if there are any comments. But now I can on YouTube, and sometimes we have bots that are overtaking these spaces. But in all these other places, you do get a sense of the engagement. It's that I don't think mainstream media can keep up with.
And it's fascinating when you read an article and the article is an opinion piece that the editorial board has approved. And then you get the comments and the tear down in the comments. You see how detached and how out of touch these people are.
Unfortunately, as I do live on one of the coasts, the bubble is still so impenetratable, and especially the New York bubble intelligence of knowledge production.
If we go back to the conversation that we were having, is there a damaging stereotype that you still see that pops up again and again in entertainment, even now with all the work that's been going on? We've had some successful series. Yes. We've had Mo Amer. Who would have thought of that, right?
Yes.
Hulu. We've got Miss Marvel. We've got a lot of really nice things that have come up. But is there anything that still pops up?
Oh, it's always fascinating to me that the terror genre still has some leftover stories, series, films that they want to make because, again, a lot of them are unprofitable. Any kind of story about a soldier saving an Afghan translator, a U.S. soldier with lead star is not making the box office bucks, but there is this deep commitment to who? I don't know who's watching any of this. So I think that there's a big harmful stereotype is that certain things need to be made, like terror genre films, when they're not profitable. And then the things that so many people are flocking to, there isn't a desire to reproduce more of it because we already did that. I've said that. Oh, you already had your Miss Marvel. You already had your Muslim woman on this. The most harmful thing is that one is enough. And it should have opened up the floodgates for us. In many other communities, East Asian folks are having an incredible flourishing that's happening in media. Black folks are still dealing with the proving so much through Sinner, through Black Panther, and still not being believed that they are sellable. We're not believed as having more stories.
So I'll share something with you. I did an interview with the filmmakers for Time Hoppers. Did you hear about Time Hoppers?
No.
Whereas The Silk Road. It's an animated film. And they just had their release. And they were the top 10 releases. And the person who did their distribution was actually stunned because they do releases for Christian faith-based films. They said that's what happened when Christians didn't have their own films because Hollywood was not interested. They created their own alternative media, like Saving Grace, these beautiful films that you see that have a faith-based element to it. And it's mostly Christian audiences. But they have enough of a market. And they were really surprised that the community came out. And they believe that there are going to be more people interested in investing in these types of projects now.
When we surprise people, that's when they take notice.
Exactly.
Nadine Lebeki did this film called Capernaum about people at the edge of Lebanese society in Beirut or outer Beirut. And I can't remember how low the budget was, but it was a smash hit in China. And they were not expecting it. So now they've called it the Capernaum formula that everybody's trying to figure out because it also means that we can get investors for independent projects if we can show that as a model that's replicable.
We want to move away from the tokenism dressed up as progress and start really doing stories of people, human nature, the kind of stuff that why do people watch Korean shows? Because there's great filmmaking. It's got great storylines. The production quality is great. It's translated.
One of my former students and I did a deep dive around global filmmaking, and we learned a lot about the Korean model. The TV dramas, a lot of them are written by women. the films which go around the world and even TV series that stun Netflix audiences, they tell a story that is inherent in so many geographies, so many cultures right now, which is that of class struggle. And I would say, on to the last answer, another thing that I'd love to see transition out of is having to be explainers for our series or our shows, our storytelling, and go into space of a Muslim person just doing whatever they do.
Be ordinary.
Yeah, not having to obsess about identity, which is a part of our story, of course. But I was trying to write something about growing up as the daughter of a car dealer. There's intricate dynamics that our faith and our own ethnic cultural background also inform that story. But the fact that has to be the central part of the storytelling means that we're still explaining, and I want us to move from explaining to being.
These are some of the untold stories, the ones that you wish somebody would make a series about. For instance, I live in a neighborhood where we have a lot of startup businesses, and a lot of them are started by women. We have the best baklava bakery.
Amazing.
Run by a woman. Not only is she busy selling the stuff at the bakery, she's busy catering. And she has a huge audience, and she's on TikTok, on Instagram. And this is a woman who, when you walk into a bakery, you hear the Quran being recited. So you see, you know where you are. You know this is a person who's faith-based, but yet she's a woman. And yet she's got a business. She's using her talent. So I've always said to myself, one day I should do a little story about her. So those are the kinds of stories we would love to do, right?
I would love to hear that. And there's so many. We were talking about what social media has allowed. It's not just storytelling, but I've seen so many women-initiated businesses emerge from that space. Coffee shops, makeup companies, hair products have flourished online because now we have the kind of savviness. I wish I had that. I really wish I inherited the entrepreneurial gene from my father, but that kind of savviness is there and it's just thriving. And those stories I want to hear. I want to continue to hear and learn. And there's also a woman who makes kanafa, who her and her daughter, and they also have just become such a staple in everywhere, not just in Muslim spaces, but even on my local KTLA Channel 5 station.
All right. For the young Muslim who's listening and who's dreaming about becoming a storyteller, a journalist, or a creator, you've already been there. What advice would you leave them with?
I would say the number one thing, I get asked to be in conversation a lot about how do I enter Hollywood? How do I enter journalism? And I say, you know what? Those are dying institutions. The first question is, how do I make what I want to make? And not relying on getting into those institutions to make that thing. So my number one suggestion is figure out how you can make the dream project, whether it is being able to be a reporter for your local neighborhood, whether it is putting a TV series together. So much is being done just out of the initiative of a small group of people that can get tested directly. And that's the kind of stuff that institutions will take away from you versus give you additive value. You get to test out being a storyteller every day on social media. Yes, you sometimes have the limits of shadow banning, different algorithm metrics that are constantly shifting, but you can build a community and a base, be directly in connection to folks. We put this series together when we didn't have all the funding for it. We got a great National Endowment for the Humanities grant as an upstart, and that's not necessarily available now. But we also turned to community for funding. We turned to other relationships we had with funders. And we told them a story which people were dreaming about, which is that our children and the rest of America could possibly be told the story of how we've always been here. And we continue to migrate here, but there are so many interesting, just mind-boggling, worldview challenging stories. And then people wanted to invest in it. Tell your story the way you want to tell it, make it compelling, and you will find an audience that wants to support you.
That's such good advice. And I would also encourage them to actually look into the American Muslim History Revealed. Where can they go see this now? At this point, is it on any platform? Where do people go?
We started out as a PBS digital series in 2024, and then we were given this opportunity to do PBS national broadcast. And for the month of May, we have been incorporated in some of PBS's 250th anniversary of the U.S. programming, which is unreal to think about that we were prioritized in that storytelling. It's amazing. So it's carried at about 70% of national affiliates. And if it's not your national affiliate, please look it up. And we also have it on our website. The website is AmericanMuslimsFilm.com. And then we have a section where to watch it. Also, you can get a PBS account and it will be there on PBS account to stream.
You can get the PBS account for free.
For free.
Okay.
And I should mention that we've reformatted it for broadcast. So you'll see something new. You'll feel something new. It's a little bit more of a broadcast event than it is a streaming, which I love our episodes that are streaming online. And those are meant there to be accessible to educators. They can use in the classroom. We already heard incredible stories of educators using the 20-minute series in a 50-minute class. And we have a curriculum guide on PBS Learning Media using that in conjunction with the films, everywhere from middle school all the way up to graduate school.
It has a curriculum attached to it, and it'll be very helpful because I do some school presentations.
Amazing.
And I'll be sure to let them know to go here because this is exactly the kind of resource they are looking for. So friends, conversations like this remind us that storytelling is not only entertainment. It shapes who we are, our belonging, and the way we see one another. So, Maytha, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a history buff, complete geek, and I didn't know most of the stories that we're telling you on this series, save for one.
We're all taught about American history in our public schools, but I think it's only really a slice of what really America is about.
Growing up, that would just change my entire life if I knew these stories. Like knowing that Thomas Jefferson had a Quran would have been huge.
It's the first work that translates directly from the Arabic into English.
There's a lot of things that the Quran has to teach the rest of the world. Thomas Jefferson understood that.
Another story is about a man who was enslaved here in the United States during the Revolutionary War era, a Muslim man who went on to negotiate his freedom and buy a house in Georgetown in Washington, D.C.
An Afghan man who sailed to the United States and ended up fighting in the Civil War.
In the case of Muhammad Khan, alias John Amahi.
There are 2.2 million that serve in the Union Army. About 1/4 of those were born in a foreign country.
It's really not surprising that Muhammad Khan would have been injured here.
It's borderline miraculous that he wasn't killed.
Going to North Dakota to see for myself the place where a mosque was built in the early 1900s.
No way.
You ever seen a mosque like that?
Never.
I think people built mosques as a way of establishing belonging.
I was really intrigued to learn the story of Mirdad, who came to the United States from the Punjab in 1917.
South Asian Muslims have been here just as long as many other European immigrant communities. Their stories were connected with the stories of other communities of color. It's a significant aspect of the past that gives a sense of a different kind of future.
Okay, Bismillah.
A woman named Florence Watts, who might be the first known African-American Muslim woman to be photographed in hijab.
They are emphasizing Islam as the natural religion for the Black man and Black woman.
Black Americans also see it as a lost heritage, something that they lost in the Middle Passage from Africa to the Americas, and that they're reclaiming.
The United States is not a monolith. It's made up of everyone from all walks of life.
I sort of struggled with trying to piece together this American and Muslim identity my entire life. I have 2 kids. I'm really excited about having an answer for them.
There's been all sorts of conversations going on right now in public schools about what history is and whose history ought to be taught, it's important that we understand all of America's history.
This is just good for the country to celebrate the fact that these people were here from the very, very beginning. It just creates this deep pride in being American and Muslim at the same time.
Thank you for joining me on Wise Women. If something stirred in you today, don't let it stop here. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Reflect on what resonated for you, and definitely plant one seed of change, however small. Remember, you do matter, and your actions have a ripple effect. But none of us can rise alone. To explore more resources and ways to get involved, do visit my website, daisycon.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, because every click is your way of amplifying this message to others. Wisdom isn't just heard, my friends, it's lived. So let's live it. Until next time, stay wise and stay rooted.